Hello, in this video I will be discussing about the old tax regime and the new tax regime under Income Tax Act. The new tax regime was introduced from the financial year 2020-21 wherein an individual and HUF can opt for whichever tax regime is beneficial to them. For individuals and HUFs who have business or professional income can opt for new tax regime in the first year, and in the second year if the old tax regime is beneficial to them they can go back and opt for old tax regime. But from third year onwards they will not be allowed to opt for new tax regime. For individuals and HUFs who do not have business or professional income can opt for new tax regime in the first year, and in the second year if the old tax regime is beneficial to them they can opt for old tax regime. In the third year if the new tax regime is beneficial to them they can again go and opt for new tax regime. So there is no restriction whatsoever for individuals and HUFs who do not have business or professional income to shift from one tax regime to another tax regime. The table on the screen explains the shifting from one tax regime to another tax regime for individuals and HUFs. The first column is financial year, wherein I have taken 4 financial years. The second column is for individuals and HUFs who have business or professional income. For them, in the first year, if they opt for new tax regime, in the second year, that is financial year 23-24, they can shift back to old tax regime. But from financial year 2024-25, they will not be allowed to shift to new tax regime. The third column is for individuals and HUFs who do not have business or professional income. For them, if they have opted for financial year 2022 and 23 new tax regime, and for the second financial year, that is 23 and 24, if the old tax regime is beneficial to them, they can shift to old tax regime. In the third financial year, that is financial year 24-25, if the new tax regime is beneficial to them, they can again shift to new tax regime. For the fourth financial year, that is financial year 25-26, if the old tax regime is beneficial to them, they can again come back to old tax regime without any restriction. For individuals and HUFs who have business or professional income, they have to file Form 10IE for exercising or withdrawing from new tax regime. One more clarification for employees and pensioners. In the month of April, their employer will ask the employee or the pensioner to declare under which tax regime their tax should be calculated and TDS should be made. If the employee or pensioner had declared one tax regime, but subsequently if he has found that tax regime which he has declared to his employer is not beneficial to him, then he cannot ask his employer to change his tax calculation from one tax regime to another tax regime during the financial year. But at the time of filing his income tax return before 31st July, he can opt for any tax regime which is beneficial to him, irrespective of the tax regime that he has declared to his employer. So during the financial year, he cannot shift from one tax regime to another tax regime, but before filing his income tax return, he can shift from one tax regime to another tax regime, irrespective of the tax regime that he has declared to his employer. Thank you.